Hi and welcome to Koko Sleep, a brand new podcast of original children's bedtime stories designed to make bedtime a dream. If you like this podcast and enjoy falling asleep to our stories, please feel free to tell your friends because they might enjoy falling asleep to them too. Tonight, we're getting into the Christmassy mood as we head back into Sleepy Forest on a snowy Christmas Eve and visit the home of our little friend. Do you remember him? It's Koko, the youngest koala in his family. We join him as he catches the sound of distant jingle bells ringing through the forest. As he follows the sound, the little koala is led to a very special person. Just before we get all Christmassy, take a little time to snuggle down into your bed and make yourself as comfortable as you can. Loosen your legs and twist your wrists. Wiggle your fingers and toes. And then snuggle down a little bit more. Close your eyes and take some deep, relaxing breaths. And now, let's settle into tonight's story, Koko's Cozy Christmas by Gillian Rogerson. It was Christmas Eve and snow had been falling softly all day on Sleepy Forest. The snowflakes settled on a cozy cabin that lay deep in the heart of the forest. Inside the cabin lived a family of koalas. The youngest koala was called Koko. On that snowy eve, the koala family were busy making final preparations for Christmas Day. Grandpa and Grandma Koala were in the kitchen, baking tantalizing treats. The delicious aroma of nutmeg, cinnamon, and gingerbread drifted through the cozy cabin. Father Koala had been busy all day chopping wood for the fire. He wanted to make sure the family would keep snug and warm during the chilly winter months. Once he'd chopped enough logs, he had placed them in a neat pile next to the cabin. Father Koala took some logs into the home and put them into a basket at the side of the fireplace. Some pieces of wood were already alight in the grate, and the soothing sounds of crackling logs added to the comforting atmosphere in the home. Amber and orange flames danced merrily over the spruce-scented wood. Mother Koala was sitting in an armchair near the window and had a colourful collection of wool at her side. She was putting the final touches on the many gifts she'd made for her family and friends. Every time someone in the cabin approached her, they were told to close their eyes so as not to spoil their surprise the following morning. Little Koko was in charge of decorations, and he had been busy for days making sure the family home looked as magical as it possibly could. Koko stood in the middle of the room and looked at the decorations to ensure there was enough festive cheer. Glittering garlands of gold and silver tinsel looped through the green branches of the Christmas tree. Sparkling baubles dangled from the end of branches, and homemade crackers nestled between pine-scented boughs. A large silver star made out of card stood proudly on top of the tree. Koko had made the star when he was very young, and even though it was lopsided and most of the glitter had fallen off, his family insisted the star take pride of place on the tree every year. With help from his father, Koko had hung red and green paper chains around the house. Homemade paper snowflakes decorated every window, making the inside of the cabin look as enchanting as the snow-covered forest outside. The family continued with their activities, and soon the light of day gave way to the pink glow of dusk. Outside, the snow continued to silently fall and covered Sleepy Forest in a glittering white blanket. Koko pressed his nose against the window and gazed at the snowy sky. Snowflakes fluttered gently downwards. Some got caught in a breeze and were taken up before pausing and drifting downwards once more. A large snowflake landed on the window. Koko gazed at the intricate pattern of the flake and marvelled at how wonderful it was. His grandpa had told him that every snowflake was different and no two were the same. For Koko, that had only added to the magic of snow. Grandpa came to his side and put his arm around the little koala. Koko asked, "Grandpa, do you think Santa will be okay in the snow? It's been falling all day. Will he still find his way here and to everyone else in the forest?" With a smile, Grandpa replied, "Santa always finds his way, no matter how deep the snow." He tilted his head to the side. "Did you hear that?" Koko hadn't heard anything, but he tilted his head just as Grandpa had done. Grandpa said, "There it is again. The sound of distant bells jingling merrily. How peculiar. Koko, you've finished all the Christmas decorations. Why don't you go on a snowy adventure and find out where that noise is coming from? Wrap up warm, it's cold out there." Koko thought going on a snowy adventure was an excellent idea, and he liked the thought of solving a mystery at the end of it. He put his coat on and wrapped a scarf snugly around his neck. Grandpa reminded him to put on his hat and mittens too. Koko was soon ready to set forth on his snowy quest. He stood at the open door of the cabin and said goodbye to his family. With loving smiles on their faces, they told him to enjoy the adventure. His father said he'd been on a similar journey when he was Koko's age, and he'd discovered where the jingling bells were coming from, but he didn't want to spoil the surprise for Koko. Grandpa and Grandma stood at the door and waved to Koko as he walked down the steps and towards the path which led into the forest. As Koko walked along, he looked back at his footprints in the snow. There were no other prints, only his, and it made the little koala feel special to be out on such a magical night. Koko continued walking through the deep, soft snow. Snowflakes fell softly upon his head and were as gentle as kisses. The snow beneath his feet sparkled and shimmered as though tiny twinkling stars had been sprinkled amongst the fallen flakes. Very soon Koko heard the faint sound of tinkling bells. They were coming from the left-hand side of the forest. Leaving the path behind, the little koala followed the joyful noise. It took him near to the home of a rabbit family. As soon as he got closer to the rabbit's burrow, the bells stopped ringing. Koko wondered why they had stopped. Perhaps he should ask the rabbit family if they had heard the bells and if they knew where they were coming from. As Koko was thinking that, The mother rabbit popped her head out of the burrow and said hello to him. Koko asked if she'd heard the jingling bells. She said she hadn't, but warmly invited Koko into her home. She told him Santa had just delivered some special gifts for her family, and she'd love to share them with Koko. Koko followed her into the burrow and entered the living room, where a crackling fire lit up the faces of the younger rabbits who were cuddled together on the sofa. Over their knees was a blanket that was the colour of the midnight sky. Tiny silver sequins around the edge of the blanket glimmered and glittered in the reflected light of the fire. The mother rabbit insisted Koko stay for a while and told her children to shuffle along the sofa to make room for him. She went into the kitchen to make some hot drinks. Koko took off his outdoor clothes before joining the cozy group on the sofa. The smallest rabbit told Koko the blanket was a gift from Santa, and no matter how many animals were on the sofa, the blanket was somehow big enough for them all. The rabbit whispered, "I think it's a magic blanket." Koko snuggled further beneath the navy-coloured covering. It felt as soft as a cloud and as warm as his grandma's hugs. Mother Rabbit walked towards the group carrying a tray. She said to Koko, "As well as that lovely blanket, Santa left us a huge tin of hot chocolate, and I've used it to make drinks for us. Koko, I hope you like hot chocolate." She passed a mug to the koala. The chocolatey drink was topped with whipped cream, and pink snowflake-shaped marshmallows nestled on top of the cream. Koko thanked the mother rabbit and said he loved hot chocolate, especially when it was snowing. He wrapped his paws around the cup and took a small sip. The creamy hot chocolate was the perfect temperature, so he took a bigger drink. The velvety liquid flowed through his body, making him feel all warm and happy inside. From the contented smiles on the rabbits' faces, he could tell they felt just as peaceful and happy as he did. Koko could have stayed snuggled under the soft blanket, drinking delicious hot chocolate all night, but something caught his attention. Over the gentle crackle of the fire and the soft chatter of the rabbits, he heard the distant sound of the bells again. They sounded merry and joyful, and it felt like they were calling him closer. Koko knew he had to find out where the sound was coming from. He finished the last of his hot chocolate and took his empty cup into the kitchen. He thanked the family for their kindness and wished them a Merry Christmas. He wrapped up warmly and left the burrow, giving the rabbits a final wave and another thank you. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, and the air was wonderfully chilly and crisp. Koko felt cozy and snug in his comfy coat. He pushed his mitten-clad paws deeper into his pockets. A robin alighted on a branch at his side and started singing a soft serenade. The tinkling tones of the bells could be heard more clearly now, and Koko followed the melody as he walked over the freshly fallen snow, leaving his prints behind. The chiming bells led him to a clearing in the forest where a group of dormice were gathered. They were looking into the trees ahead of them and seemed to be waiting for something to happen. Koko stood at the back of the group and asked what they were doing.
"We're waiting for the magic to begin,"
one of the dormice replied.
"Santa's just been to see us. He said he's left us a gift to help our families find their way through the snow to our homes. He told us to watch the trees and wait for our magical gift to appear."
Koko wondered what the gift could be, so he looked at the trees too. The background sound of bells fell silent, and for a few minutes there was nothing but a peaceful hush and a calm silence. There was an air of happy anticipation as everyone waited for something wonderful to happen. Very soon, the magic began. The dormice and Koko watched in wonder as one by one, floating strings of fairy lights glided through the air and festooned themselves between branches and around tree trunks. Soft pinks, greens, blues and purples now lit up the snow-topped trees, making them glow gently. Pastel-hued snowflakes started to drift down from the dark sky, and they alighted on the snowy ground, where they glowed brightly like stars. The pathways to the homes of the waiting dormice were now clear to see, and within seconds the first visitors began to appear. They walked through the brightly lit trees and were greeted with hugs and kisses by their waiting relatives. When the last of the guests had arrived, the dormice held hands and began to sing Christmas carols. Koko joined in. He didn't know all the words, but he did his best. The joy and love on the faces of the singing dormice made Koko's heart feel as light as a feather, and he couldn't stop smiling. Once the singing had finished, the dormice invited Koko into their homes for warm mince pies and a generous slice of chocolate Yule log. Koko was tempted, but then he heard the far-off sound of the bells chiming again, and so politely said no to the kind dormice. They told him he was welcome to stop by the following day, and perhaps he could bring his family too. Koko thanked them for their kind offer. He wished them a Merry Christmas, and then set off on his snowy adventure again. The bells were louder now, and he let the joyful tune guide his footsteps through Sleepy Forest. Koko walked on and met many animals along the way. He stopped to chat with them and discovered Santa had left thoughtful gifts for all of them. A nightingale told Koko that Santa had given her a songbook because he knew how much she loved singing. She opened the book and sang one of the new tunes just for Koko. Her beautiful voice made him feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Koko met an elderly badger who adored the fragrance of summer roses. She showed Koko the rose-scented candles Santa had given her and said now she could enjoy the relaxing smell of her favourite flowers all year long. A group of moles told Koko how delighted they were with the coal and carrots that Santa had given them. They explained how the gifts would be used to decorate the dozens of wonderful snow moles their youngsters had built during that very snowy day. They showed the line of snow moles to Koko, and he agreed they were extremely impressive. The coal eyes and carrot noses glimmered and twinkled and made the snow moles look even more enchanting. Each animal Koko met asked him into their homes to share the food and drink they prepared. Koko thanked them, but with regret he had to say no to their kind offers.